Hey-o.
Yo, a very pleasant good afternoon, and welcome into yet another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. This is not the dear Goon. This is the dear Chris Buchignani, who is kind enough to fill in once again for the Goon, who is off to a very good decision by him, off to the Sunshine State of Florida. And I have to say, this was a good day to choose to miss spring here in Happy Valley.
Had to clean snow off his windshield this morning.
I don't believe so. Was that not the craziest?
That was wild.
Freaking
that was
thing?
Wild.
After the weather, nice stretch that we've had. To actually see, it didn't amount to anything, but I mean, it was, as you said, I had to get it off of your windshield this morning. I mean, it was not just random flurries in the air for a little while. It was a very slight accumulation, but accumulation nonetheless, at least on the vehicles. And I, for one, am not happy about it. The dear Mad Turtle, my son was ecstatic about it.
Sure.
He was alone in our household at being ecstatic. The dog, our dog Kenai, who normally is very pro snow, did not seem altogether thrilled with it this morning.
Even
either.
The dog's done.
Yeah,
with
he's like, no, this is I, who have not experienced spring yet in my lifetime, was born last fall. Even I know that, no, we should not be having snow at this time of April here in the Valley of Happiness.
Think about this, Ironhead. So no real blue-white weekend this year, but we've got two fake ones.
Yeah.
Like last weekend and then this one coming up on Friday night.
Yep.
How dangerously close, though, just thinking about a big picture, to a theoretical blue-white weekend is another one of these miserable, freezing cold, snowy April days.
Honest to Pete.
I feel like this is like a relatively new but uncomfortably commonplace thing now. If you go back to the 2013 blue and white game, it was a totally new experience for me as a veteran of many, many blue-white weekends to have not just cold and wind. That happens every once in a while. But like sleet and ice with a little snow mixed in. I remember very, very clearly being out on the IM fields and just a lot of miserable people who couldn't even get keep their gas grills lit. Like we had all this uncooked meat we couldn't eat. Like our whole tailgate the whole day was chips, pretzels, and candy. Everyone was miserable. It was awful. It was terrible. But I thought, this is a Black Swan event. This is not going to happen again in my lifetime. And then I know, like 4 or 5 years later, the same damn thing happened. And sure enough, if we had a real blue-white weekend this year, but for 1 or 2 days, that could have been 3 times in less than a decade. Enough now.
Crazy.
Nonsense.
I mean, truly nuts. Lots that we can get into as we're coming to you on the air here today. The beloved Pirates and the Tigers are tied at 2 in the 7th inning. The Pirates, Todd Frazier was robbed in the top half of the inning here, and now the Tigers do have a runner in scoring position here in the 7th inning as the Pirates continue the tradition of playing with mixed results here on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show on Thursday afternoon.
I'll tell you what, though, I do like the alternate road unis.
I do too.
With the black tops and the script Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
it's pretty sharp looking.
Yeah, it is. It is a good look. I'm with you on that. One of the better uniform.
If you're not going to play
choices.
Good, you may as well look good.
Absolutely right. Beautiful uniforms, beautiful park. Got that going for us if you're a Pirates fan. I'm not even sure, anymore. I was talking with a buddy of mine who's also in sports, and we were talking with Casey Cantz a little bit last week, and it's just. It is becoming increasingly difficult. The thing I used to love, and when I first started doing the morning show, let me back up. Sorry. I'm throwing a lot of thoughts together. I'm trying to get them together in my mind. Apologize. That was a horrible run-on sentence that made no sense. Let me start with this. When I first started doing the morning show, news talk show, and this is inevitable and was not surprising. The criticism I'd get most often is, stick to sports. If I threw out an opinion that somebody was disagreeing with, It was you should just stick to sports. Let's sports, but man, you don't know politics. And over the years, people would still throw that in every now and then. Again, it was almost always if it was you were giving an opinion that they disagreed with. The other criticism I would get would be, you talk too much sports, and my argument was always, do you understand where you live and what dominates this area?
Right.
Whether you like it or not, Penn State football absolutely dominates. Certainly State College, but really Center County overall. I mean, when you talk about there's nothing else that has in and of itself the economic impact on this community, this county, that Penn State football does. Obviously, the university as a whole does, but there's no other department within the university or anything like that has that type of impact on the local economy. And truthfully, the impact that the football program, and where Brandon Short is right, and although I disagree with how adamant he is that there has to be additional investment in the football program. I'm not here to defund the football program. Let the record clearly show. But I don't think you need to be keeping up with whoever the highest bidders are in college football for all of the different elements of the program in order to field a competitive program. And I think if you go back to the Joe Paterno era, that was pretty substantially shown. I do think there needed to be a greater investment than what Paterno and Penn State made toward the end of Paterno's career. Agreed with that. But I don't like Michigan spent this much, so Penn State has to spend at least that much. It just isn't the way. Let's get as much bang for your buck as you can, but let's not just start spending money because you feel like you need to spend money. If the facilities are adequate or good, if you don't like the word adequate, again, I don't think they need to be the absolute top of the line, best in the world in order for you to be able to compete at a very high level. But at the end of the day, it is getting harder and harder to separate sports and politics. And we've been talking about that a little bit over the last couple of weeks.
Not just sports, Ironhead.
But, true. Everything.
I got to look over my shoulder before I decide which side of my toast I'm going to butter in the morning.
Yeah, it's... and I don't know, I am not one of these people, and I never have been, and never will be. I'm not one of these people that thinks, hey, just shut up and dribble. Nobody's paying to hear your opinions. I like the fact. I'm one of those people that like the fact we live in a free society, and if a LeBron James wants to weigh in on a social issue, a political matter, all the power to him. I have zero problem with athletes or anybody for that matter in any profession, actors, actresses, name of the profession. You want to express an opinion, I'm okay with it. Where I think where I'm, I don't know if troubled is the right word, but concerned is, I was just kind of curious to see how things were going to be handled across the board with the George Floyd, the verdict in a Derek Chauvin case coming off of George Floyd's death. And what and largely it was as I expected in terms of flipping around and looking at the different media outlets, except that I did not anticipate just how much overwhelming coverage would be given by ESPN to the verdict and the reaction within the sports world. And
I will profess, beyond the Raiders tweet, I am totally ignorant to everything you're describing.
Yeah, well, no idea. And again, I'm a bit of a media junkie, and I'm fascinated. I've always been fascinated by the media and how
I used to be just like that, Ironhead. In my old age, I am becoming much more miserly with my brain cells.
Yeah.
So I just got to be real careful. Like if I lose that brain cell, I miss it for like a week.
Yeah.
So like I try to avoid cable news and cable sports.
You're a wise man.
Except for Masson, Nesson, and 11 Sports, proud affiliates of the obligatory PSU pregame show, of course. But aside from those three great ones and any others that may pick up the show between now and this fall, I try to avoid all of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no. So, there was a time where it was you could go to, and not just ESPN, but you could go to a sports network and get sports. There was a time when you could turn on MTV and get music. I mean, that
was the example I was thinking of. Yes,
there were crazy things that happened once upon a time, but now it just feels like everybody believes they have to weigh in and give significant coverage to. And listen, to some extent, I mean, obviously coming off of 9/11, right? I mean, the sports world was. You couldn't help but intertwine the two. I mean, the World Series that year was as significant of a sporting event as I believe we've had this century, because again, it felt like we were getting back to some sense of normalcy. And Papa Joe Chevalier had a sports talk show at the time, and which we carried for a while when I was working at WRSC in town, and he was a fellow Yankees hater, and he said, I love that we're getting back to the point where I can hate the Yankees, I can love New York, respect all that the firefighters and police did, but man, I want to be able to just root against the Yankees, and now I'm able to do it, and it feels like we're getting back to some sense of normalcy in that regard as well. And so sports again has always had you go back to the Olympic Games and Black Power, and so it's not that it's a new phenomenon, but the amount of coverage that is now given to politics and and listen, because of the social platforms now, the social media platforms, and athletes have the opportunity to more often, more directly weigh in on events, and they're taking advantage of it. What I guess I am disappointed in is the lack of, and it's the same concern I have with the journalism in general, as we talked about with the Sandusky case last week, is this, I'm going to rush to make a pronouncement that I believe will be perceived by the majority as taking a righteous stance. Mm-hmm. And instead of, let's just sit back, see what's actually involved. And, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but this most recent shooting that the LeBron was weighing in on and posted the photo of the officer who fired his weapon and killed the 16-year-old girl. Again, if you've not seen the body camera footage, I'm not sure exactly what it is we're expecting police to do. You had a girl, and the police officer doesn't know the age of the individual. What he is seeing is somebody with a knife trying to attack two other people, and seeing that they are in imminent life-threatening danger and taking action. And I read one social media account that was, it's like, well, police are supposed to de-escalate a situation. Yes, at where you can. When you are getting to a place, there are certain situations where, yes, you can de-escalate. You have, two sides that are, itching for a fight, and they're coming in. The police can step in and say, "Hell, hold on, let's talk this out." When you have somebody that is making stabbing motions with a knife in their hand, that is not the time that you as a police officer can, hey, excuse me, can we just talk about there isn't an opportunity there to de-escalate anything. You have got to take action. Now, whether or not it needs to be deadly action, again, all of the police officers I've talked to and the experts that you listen to will tell you that the police only draw their weapons when they are prepared to fire. And when you are prepared to fire, you are not for a wide variety of reasons, but primarily it is the safety of other individuals. You are not to be shooting at arms or legs, right? You are trying to hit the area that has the biggest target because you are wanting to hit only your target. And unfortunately, the head and the body primarily, obviously, if you are accurate with your shot, that can be lethal and is certainly at the very least going to be very harmful to the individual that you are stopping. But I really don't know what more LeBron or anybody else that thinks this police officer is supposed to be hung in effigy. I would love to know what it is that you think somebody is supposed to do when they come across a situation like that, where again you are not. There's not an opportunity there to talk somebody back down off of the ledge, right? You are witnessing somebody about to possibly be killed, very likely be killed. You that isn't a time you sit and try to talk reasonably to that person, and you're going to see, in my mind, there was going to be a life lost one way or the other by the time police arrived, and I think the police made the right decision based on what I've seen. Now, again, could there be more evidence coming out? Could we learn more about what occurred and my mind changed? Absolutely. But based on what we've seen, it sure seemed like a pretty reasonable measure to me by the police officer involved. And again, saved the life of quite possibly two other young girls in the process. Again, I'm not saying anybody shouldn't be allowed to weigh in, but what I wish is you would wait, everybody, media, politicians, athletes, actors, actresses, knuckleheads that have podcasts or video streams. I wish everybody would let's just wait, get as many of the facts as we can, and not have knee-jerk reactions to everything that happens, and understand that there is often a lot more nuance in these situations, even with the George Floyd case. And listen, I absolutely think the right verdict was rendered. I listened, and I do think there is legitimately some question as to whether or not the fentanyl that was in George Floyd's system would have ultimately rendered him dead as well. But having seen the video and having listened to the testimony on both sides, again, in my mind, there's no question that the actions by Chauvin at least contributed heavily to the death of George Floyd. And at the end of the day, if you are at least taking proper actions, right, and he dies anyway, then okay, it was because of the fentanyl.
Right.
You do not, and I have many police officer friends, not many that would be willing to admit it publicly, but I have yet to talk to any of them that say, no, Chauvin was absolutely in the right. When you get somebody under control. And again, the whole situation with that
is kind of a sad commentary, by the way, although I completely believe you, that none of them would want to admit, because there's this sense of like...
No, I'm saying they didn't want to admit that they know me.
Oh.
No, they are willing to admit.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right. I got you.
They are condemning.
I thought what you were saying was they were
no.
so afraid to even criticize. Okay.
No,
all right. I got you.
They are willing to condemn Chauvin and say.
Well, if what you meant was that they were afraid to admit and associate with you, that's
correct.
Entirely understandable, and not a sad commentary in any way.
No, completely reasonable and understandable. But, we used to have Sergeant Glenny, who's now out in Colorado, but we would have him on a regular feature on our show. One of the things when we were doing the morning show, and one of the things he consistently talked about is the need for officers to understand when to use force and when not to, and how critical it was that no matter what, and I can't tell you how many times he made this point, and it just has stuck with me indelibly, is that an officer needs to use force up to and until he gets he or she gets a perpetrator under control. But no matter what happened up to the point where you get them under control, again, it doesn't matter how egregious they've been. It doesn't matter if they've gone on a killing spree. Once you have them under control, then your use of force stops.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. There were, I think, more circumstances, extenuating circumstances that led up to what Chauvin did than many people realized initially. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Once you got Floyd on the ground, you got the cuffs behind him, and he stopped struggling, stopped resisting, you need to get the hell off of him. And I'm telling you, any officer worth their salt will tell you this. That no, at that point, and actually even more so because of the fentanyl and the suspected, and I do think the police suspected that there was drug use given Floyd's history and the way he was acting. But that's all the more reason that you need to be letting up and getting the guy medical help as quickly as possible, not pinning him to the ground. That being said, again, the fact that so many are feeling now that they need to weigh in on all of these other cases as though there's no other nuance, that every case is exactly like this Floyd case, and it's a clear example anytime somebody dies, especially if it's a black person dying at the hands of a white officer, that it's obviously just racism or abuse. And that's the other thing with the Chauvin case. There's still been zero evidence that I've seen that indicates this was racially motivated. And I don't think that makes it any better or worse in my mind. I think this was a cop that was abusing his power and using way too much force for the circumstance. But I've not seen anything that indicates that this was done because of racial motivations. And again, that makes it not any better or worse in my mind. But I worry that we're down this track now, and we saw it with the Sandusky case, and maybe because of my what I believe is my understanding of that case and how things developed, I am really sensitive and really concerned about this idea of mob rule. And because a lot of people, even if it's an overwhelming majority of people, and I don't know that that's even necessarily the case. I think a lot of times it's just, again, you're seeing, all right, it's a couple of famous people in the media, it's a couple of famous athletes, a couple of famous actors. Therefore, that must be the general consensus opinion out there, because I've seen, LeBron James and Robert De Niro and George Stephanopoulos all weigh in with the same opinion. That must be what the prevailing thinking is out there. And I hate when we get narratives developed without hearing both sides and without getting any perspective or sense of nuance within any given case. And I think our judicial system was set up very well. I think there are problems with it, and I do think there are racial problems with our justice system even today. So I'm not sitting here telling you that I don't see or recognize that there are any issues, but I don't think those issues are resolved by, well, the mob has decided that any white officer who kills a black person needs to pay and suffer the consequences. When, again, in some of these cases, and I think this case in Columbus, from what I've seen to this point, this looks to me like an officer who saved two people's lives. And that's the way I think this story should be reported. And I think that officer, again, based on what I've seen to this point, I think that officer ought to be heralded and lauded for taking swift, decisive action that saved the life of two individuals rather than getting criticized and condemned and really threatened by the likes of LeBron James. And again, this is just one person's opinion. You can certainly feel free to weigh in with your own opinion and feel differently. But I don't like the. I don't care what side it is. We had the case that I talked about, I think it was on Tuesday or maybe it was Thursday last week of that Virginia Tech soccer player. And that's, a case that would fit my world narrative and my political view. But I don't want that coach fired until we get to the bottom of that lawsuit and find out exactly what did or didn't happen. I don't like this idea of, again, while somebody says something, we saw with Aaron Donald. I mean, it was a case of just misidentification in that case, but we had people that were pretty swift to, oh man, this guy. And
to your point, when I was in here with you guys, I guess that was Tuesday, you were talking about it. I mean, again, I am super busy right now. I spend a lot of time on Zoom, on the phone, in an editing bay. I joke about preserving my brain cells, but honestly, I've got limited numbers of hours in the day that I'm not working, and I've got a family and a young daughter who I like to spend time with. So I try to keep aware of what's going on. The story you're talking about right now, I'm aware of it. I don't know about the LeBron James stuff. I don't care. I haven't had a chance to watch your body cam footage, any of that. But to your point about Aaron Donald, you and Goon are talking back and forth about that. The last I had heard of that story was Aaron Donald beat some guy up. And I spent 10 seconds thinking about it. And then I thought, well, if there's anything to this, I'm sure I'll hear about it again in 6 months.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I'm going to forget about it. And if I don't hear it, then I'm sure it's been resolved. But just the idea that, again, as someone who is, this stuff is just kind of passing across my radar and then disappearing down the internet memory hole. You would have pinned me down there as you guys were talking about it. And 5 seconds before you brought it up, if somebody came to me and said, what's the story about Aaron Donald? I'd say, I don't know, he got drunk and beat some guy up in a bar.
Well, and here is the problem, because I believe that the majority of Americans are like you. I
think so.
I consider
I don't know
myself,
how the hell people find the time to keep track of all of this stuff.
Well, and here's the thing. So I consider myself
and your multitasking abilities.
A media, political, and sports junkie.
Yeah.
And even as much as I consider myself that, I will tell you that I will go a week, sometimes a couple of weeks at a time without really checking in. Again, I'll try to check a couple of news sites early in the morning while everybody else is sleeping.
Our species spent about 1 million years evolving to sleep while it was dark, go out, hunt, gather, whatever, do what you need to do to propagate the species, and then go back to sleep. And now all of a sudden, our poor lizard brains are just getting bombarded with information 24/7, 365. Clearly there are people who are able and willing to keep up with it and process it at a far higher rate than I am.
But I think most people are not, right? The overwhelming majority are
maybe
probably
that's true.
Even less than us. Right?
Which must be awesome.
Well, awesome,
ignorance is bliss.
Except that if you are, again, you're just checking the headlines and you're doing it periodically, right? And this is why I don't want government oversight, for God's sake, of the media, but there needs to be some sort of check and balance here, because, again, the Sandusky case, I guarantee you the overwhelming majority of Americans, and again, I understand it, and my issue is not with the overwhelming majority of Americans, because, again, even as a sports or a media junkie that I consider myself, there are days that will go by where, because of the same thing. I mean, my son has we go from, I'm leaving this show, hustling home, going to t-ball practice, going to basketball practice, and then we're going home, and we will all be exhausted and asleep by 9 o'clock. I won't be watching any of the media coverage of anything tonight. And again, I think a majority of people are in that boat. We just have busy lives between your job and your family. There's not a lot of time to sit down and try to critically analyze what it is that you are consuming on the media front. But I suspect the overwhelming majority of people, if you just, hey, do you remember that Sandusky, the Penn State case? Do you remember what happened there? Yeah, Joe Paterno was raping kids in the shower, or saw somebody raping kids in the shower. Or
Greg Schiano and Joe Paterno were part of a cover-up.
Yes,
the 35-year cover-up of some kind of sex crimes,
right,
with Jerry Sandusky, right?
And so my point is, again, I don't know what I want to be done in terms of actual oversight, because I don't know. We're all human beings, and as humans, we're going to make a mistake from time to time. But it is troubling to me to see the way the media can manipulate and does manipulate stories and narratives. And again, they know, right, that once that gets entrenched, it's like the if you're accused of rape, good luck getting that reputation back, even if it becomes absolutely provable, and it rarely is provable one way or the other. But if it, evidence surfaces, and by God, I was not even at the in town when the woman says this happened, and it was a one-time thing, and there was no way, and completely exonerated. I mean, not just found not guilty, but exonerated. There was no way that it was you, and determined that you never have done anything wrong. Good luck with that on the reputation standpoint. And again, I love the work that John Ziegler has done. I love the work that John Snedden has done in the Sandusky case. I like there's a lot of work being done on a lot of these cases and issues that are out there. But most of us, again, most consumers, you're going to a website or two, maybe watching a newscast or two, and that you're okay. Well, that's what happened, and you're moving on with your day. And again, understandably, I mean, the amount of time that John Ziegler has spent digging in and going through, interviewing all of the individuals involved. I mean, much more time than Louis Freeh ever considered giving this case. And actually, I believe, uncovering the truth of what happened. Again, once it's been established, well, no, I don't want to revisit we already know what happened at Penn State. That was, my God, that was 10 years ago. We've moved on to a gazillion other things since then. How many of those other gazillion things are you also absolutely wrong about, because the media got it absolutely wrong with an initial narrative? And again, the George Floyd case to me is the exception rather than the rule. And even there, in that, the original narrative, I think, was largely correct. And again, I do think there was more nuance there. I think there's some more circumstances that were rightfully considered by the jury before the verdict was made. At the end of the day, again, I think Chauvin was rightfully found guilty. I think regardless of all of those other circumstances, Chauvin's actions, at the very least, likely contributed strongly to the death of George Floyd.
It's important to think of it's important to look at things in context, but it's also important to look at them in isolation, and irrespective of whether or not the system has or has not worked in previous cases, or by and large in general over a period of time. I think you do want all of that information to be as thoroughly vetted as you can, because then if through our system of jury trial, to see it work and to see there be general consensus that it worked properly, even if you can point to a myriad of previous examples in which that wasn't the end result, that's a good thing. And listen, nobody wants to turn on this show and hear me lecture about my feelings about the importance of preserving the essence of Enlightenment liberal values, okay? and nor should you, because as I have reiterated many times, if you want my opinion on politics or society, I have terrible news for you. You're a moron. You don't want to hear them. That said, I will humbly submit that perhaps we ought to try to do things as a society to preserve our notion of presumption of innocence and trial by jury. I'm just going to say those are probably I'm pretty sure you could get beat up in certain quarters of the internet for expressing those views, but I'm just going to throw that out and duck, I guess. So anyway, that's...
No, I think that's exactly right. Very importantly, we should pass along that the beloved Bucks have put up a 2 spot in the top of the 8th, and the Pirates now lead.
I'm telling you, it's those alternate roadies, man.
Yeah, so I think
gotta wear those more often.
This will get the Pirates to 2-1 on Thursdays when we're on the air. If this score holds up. So we're back to thinking that there is some good luck charm here to the Quaker Steak and Lube show. Ironhead and Goon being able to help the Pirates across the finish line in these games here from the Lube. But yeah, it is a sharp-looking uniform, and for the moment, it is a sharp-looking score if you are a Pirates fan. And they continue to play good baseball. We'll see. Again, I'm still waiting for the other shoe. You've
seen this movie before.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I still believe it is a matter of time. But I will enjoy it as well while it lasts. We'll take a break here. When we come back, I do want to talk some Penn State basketball here. We've spent a lot of time talking Penn State basketball over the last year and a half here, and a myriad of thoughts again for me as you look at this thing moving forward, and we'll kick that around as we continue with the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show from Quaker Steak and Lube right after this.
Lion Country Kia is offering exceptional deals on your new Kia during Kia's Command the Season event.
We have a nice selection on the 2021 Kia Sportage with various options and prices as low as $26,800, saving you $3,000. Or if you demand big power and towing capacity, slip into one of the 2021 Kia Sorrentos available on our lot, starting at $32,680.
Discover why Kia drivers throughout the area come to Lion Country Kia or visit online at lioncountrykia.com.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local Lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
I'm here with Keith, Goon, Conlon, and you've got a little trip you're cooking up for August. Tell us about it.
So we got 4 or 5 ex-football players, Shane Conlon, myself, Troy Drayton, Justin Kupakis, and Mike Maudie. We're going to go down to Barbados, leave from different airports, 5 days, 4 nights. We've got to get our skills ready to go for the football season, so what better way to do it than down in Barbados?
People come along on this trip, what are they going to be doing down there?
Very laid-back atmosphere. We're going to have golfing trips, fishing trips, and then at night, the days are very, very chill, and then at nighttime there'll be cocktail parties and, old viewings of old football games from Penn State. You might be watching the 87 Fiesta Bowl, the 95 Rose Bowl, a private viewing for all the people who are on the trip of Saving Your Roar, which is the 2012 team documentary. So the biggest thing is that it's 100% refundable. LionsLegendsTravels.com. Everything is on there. It's $19.95 a person. There's multiple airports, so check in.
Good stuff, Goon. Lions Legends Travel. Check it out.
He's not getting that car in there.
No, sir.
Hey, look at these 2 troublemakers.
Johnny, how are you?
Wicked car. Is that new?
Yeah, it's a Sonata. Let me park it.
Oh, you're not fitting your car in there.
Chris, stop being a smarty pants, all right? Look who's got Smart Park. Even Bruiser can park it. Just hit the clicker. I can park it anywhere.
Beaver Stadium?
Parked it.
Even the Jordan Center?
Parked it.
Even Medler Field?
Even Bruiser parked it.
Hey, you can't park there.
He's got Smart Park!
Wicked smart.
Blaze Alexander Hyundai. It's wicked smart.
Still love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We are live at Quaker Steak and Lube here on this Thursday afternoon. Jeff Byers, Chris Buchignani filling in for the Dear Goon, who is down in the Sunshine State, enjoying, I presume, significantly better weather than what we are enduring here in Happy Valley today. Couple things with Penn State basketball, and it's one of those things as I'm talking to lifelong Penn State fans. Everybody is trying to be, and I think is, being supportive of Micah Shrewsbury, right? There's no reason at this point to not be.
No, yeah, it's a great hire. I thought it was. I thought it was the best hire, the best realistic hire Penn State could make.
Yeah, and I think to this point, and listen, I take it for what it is, and no results whatsoever to speak of yet. We'll see what happens in the upcoming season and in the years beyond. I will say I am impressed with the way Shrewsbury conducts himself, but I'm more impressed with the way he has gone about putting together this staff.
Yeah.
And I need to reach out. I will reach out to a couple of my more knowledgeable basketball media beat folks here for Penn State. It feels to me like this is a larger staff than what we are accustomed to having with Penn State basketball. The hires announced today, Mike Green as the director of player development. Mike Green played at Butler, started his collegiate career at Towson, then played at Butler. Was part of a Sweet 16 team with Butler. I think was it 5 or 6 years was in the NBA and on the Cavaliers roster here. Most recently has finished up. Was never obviously a star in the NBA or a regular starter or anything like that. But in a lot of ways, when you're talking about player development, right? Like that, to me, that's the perfect background. This is somebody that, doesn't come from a blue blood program and has had to bust his tail, presumably, to get everything that he earned as a player, which is significant.
Including to hang around on an NBA roster for 5 years is no small feat. I mean, you're talking very small roster sizes, and you've got to be really, really, really good at basketball to be a kind of bad NBA player.
And I think getting the exposure that he's had to, again, playing in a couple different programs collegiately. So you saw how a couple of different programs handle things. A smaller school like Towson, I mean, Butler's a small school too, but big time in terms of the basketball program. And then, again, being able to be around legends in the NBA, great coaches in the NBA, but also, again, having to fend for yourself. When you're talking about player development, right? I mean, he has been exposed to a whole lot here, and I like the hire without knowing. I mean, I wouldn't know Mike Green if he walked in right now, and I don't know for sure what all he's picked up from all of his lessons. But on paper, boy, it's sure. You read through the resume and you're thinking player development, somebody that can develop players. Boy, this sounds like somebody that ought to be able to do that pretty successfully. And then the other hire, Brian Snow, director of recruiting. And Snow has been with 24/7 Sports as national recruiting analyst. So I like that hire because, again, you're talking about somebody who has been dealing with recruits and with the coaches that are recruiting those recruits across the country for a number of years. And that is significant. Those contacts, I think, are likely to aid the Penn State program. I think when you look at the overall staff right now, it's varied backgrounds. I like the fact that you do have, a Taylor Battle in there that has the Penn State ties. And, I don't know if there's a player that better represents what you want to think of as the fighting spirit of Penn State basketball than Taylor Battle for crying out loud. So I like the fact that you have that element on this staff, but you are bringing in a wide range of expertise and experience. And again, we'll see how it all fits together. It's still, I think, an uphill climb here. But I am a lot more optimistic than I was even when Shrewsbury was hired that, this might not be as long of a road back to any kind of respectability as what I was envisioning when the search opened up again because of everything that the program has gone through the last year and a half.
Well, it feels like a staff that is indicative of a genuine attempt to take a swing at this thing in terms of being consistently competitive. Because I came here as a freshman in 1997. Over the entirety of my time here in Happy Valley, almost without exception, the institutional support for basketball has basically represented a philosophy that I saw described impeccably once on Black Shoe Diaries years ago, which was spend pennies to make nickels. Like, look, this sport's in the black. We're making a few $1 million off this. Nobody cares. Let's just not upset the apple cart. Let's have a very, very modest budget. And then if every once in a while we stumble backwards into a good season, awesome. That's a little extra scratch to the right side of the ledger. And that's it. But if you look at hypothetically, allegedly, the money that is being spent, we'll find out what Shrewsbury's salary is eventually because Penn State once a year has to disclose its 25 highest paid employees. So he's going to be on that list somewhere. But what he is rumored to be making is way, way more than we have compensated a head basketball coach previously, even like comparing 2021 dollars to whatever. And, he's got a varied background. He's got the NBA background. I think he's put together, like you said, a bigger staff, a more diverse staff, and one that when you look at its resume in totality, just feels like a group that you put together to actually compete, not just run on the treadmill and say, well, whatever, if there's 3,000 people in the Bryce Jordan Center, who cares, just as long as we're making our $1 to $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Now that could backfire. That could be a total disaster because either A, we could still keep losing at the same clip and then you're spending more to get the same results, or B, there could be a moderate improvement in the overall results, even a significant improvement. And the fan base may just not respond in a way where the additional revenue offsets what you're spending to realize those gains. So it's a risk.
There's a couple of just interesting components. Probably more than a few, but a couple that I think make what's going to happen here the next couple of years very interesting. To your point, right now, men's basketball realistically is the third most popular sport, winter sport at Penn State. It is men's hockey and wrestling in whatever order you want to put, and I can put statistics together that would lead you to believe either one could be the lead sport here. But basketball right now is trailing those two in terms of fan interest in the programs. Now, again, the wrestling program obviously has won 8 national titles in the last 10 years. The hockey program, there's still that feeling of newness about the Division I, and obviously remarkable success out of the gate. And then, the newness of the Big Ten Conference in hockey as a conference now as well, I think has some momentum there. And obviously the facility with the hockey program, unlike the wrestling and the basketball program, is something that the Penn State can showcase. Again, I've got to reach out to a couple of because I'm not 100% sure I'm right about this, and I haven't followed the basketball program and the overall athletics as closely as I did like when I was a sports director. Now I still follow them all and I'm aware of what they're doing generally. But I mean, there was a time when I could name pretty much all of the assistant coaches on every staff here, certainly all of the head coaches. And then you had a good feel for, okay, this, compared to the baseball program for a while was, significantly behind other programs in terms of the overall staff, programs that were competing for national titles.
Yeah.
When you compare the ACC schools and Pac-12 schools, and some of it was weather related, but some of it was the money being spent on those programs, and the overall staff was just larger for some of those other programs. And that was certainly the case with basketball. I don't 100% know, and I should know, and I just don't, with did Pat Chambers have they had a director of recruiting, but did they have director of player development, and did they have the amount of support staff that Shrewsbury is being granted? And again, maybe Pat did. I know there were certainly upgrades to the overall program in terms of that support staff under Chambers, but I don't know where it compares to the Dukes and the top programs of the country right now. So there's a couple of things. So you are also still in the Big Ten Conference, and you can be really good and still be middle of the road in the Big Ten, right? Like for Penn State to be consistently 5th or 6th in the Big Ten would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
But Shrewsbury could be doing everything right with these hires, and because of, again, the lack of history here, and just because of the diversity of fan interest, what is going to be interesting to me, one of the things, and I hope we find out, is if Penn State is consistently going to the NCAA tournament, and by consistently, let's say 6 or 7 out of every 10 years in a decade, Penn State is in the NCAA tournament, right? We're talking very heady stuff for this program.
Yes.
If Penn State gets to that point, obviously there will be more fans at the Jordan Center, but does the Jordan Center get to the point where it's 14,000 consistently?
Yeah.
And if that happens, and the hockey and the wrestling programs continue to have success, I don't know. And I get that Penn State football gets 107,000 in there. Is there enough during the winter when you have the weather conditions and everything else? Is it possible? I guess it's possible. Is it realistically sustainable for Penn State to have Pagola filled, Rec Hall filled for hockey and wrestling, and the Jordan Center filled or close to it on a consistent basis?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you sell out all 3 venues every time,
sure,
but pretty close, pretty consistently. And I genuinely don't know the answer, and especially when there are, I don't know the number of times, but, hockey and wrestling are certainly, Friday nights. It is very common to have them both. It might be a Friday afternoon or Friday night for the hockey, but, same day. Well, if you have all 3 venues, even in a 24-hour period, again, what is realistically, is there enough support there? Is there a big enough fan base that, no problem, we'll sell out all 3 venues if the product is there? And it may very well be. I genuinely don't know the answer to that, and I hope we get to find out.
It's worth pointing out, too, that all of those sports are played at a time of year where the weather is very unpredictable, and especially when it comes to the Bryce Jordan Center.
Yeah.
You are not even going to get – let's forget about selling it out. Could you consistently fill the lower bowl so it looks less ridiculous to have the black curtains up? At least you've got that whole lower section relatively filled. You're not going to do that without consistently drawing fans from outside of the center region.
Yeah.
You're going to have some people who are willing to make the trip. So, number one, you got to make the team that they're traveling to watch a compelling enough draw.
Yeah.
But then – you also have to factor in all the look, there were many a night over the years, Ironhead. My wife and I have been season ticket holders for way longer than I'd like to admit. Many a night where I'd look outside and I would just imagine what I was going to have to do just to be able to open my car door again by the time the game was over. And I lived 10 minutes away from the Bryce Jordan Center. And I was like, I'll watch it on TV. So the idea that I'm gonna drive to and from Altoona or Phillipsburg or Belfont, I don't know. Which is why I think you have to you have to have modest expectations on what the ROI is going to be from this hire. And Kevin Horn and I have been arguing for years and years and years over whether or not an increased institutional investment in men's basketball on the part of Penn State would result in a commensurate increase in revenue to make it all worth it. Kevin says, yes. I say no. I mean, I'm just being upfront because of all the factors we just discussed. He'll say, oh, well, you know what? When the team is good, the Bryce Jordan Center fills up. Well, yeah, that's because it's a novelty factor. The team's good once a decade, and the Bryce Jordan Center will mostly fill up to watch that novelty of a competitive Penn State basketball team play Michigan State. Now, forget the difficulty of getting them to the point of consistent competitiveness. I mean, you're talking about 6 or 7 tournaments in a year. Like, great, I'll ride to the tournament games on my unicorn or my flying pig when that happens. But just setting all of that aside, even if you somehow surmount that tremendous obstacle, I'm still not sure that when you're talking about whatever it is, 18 home games a year, with the weather and wrestling and ice hockey and all of these other things, not to mention the fact that this is just not a great natural area in terms of fan interest for the sport of basketball, because you got a lot of Western Pennsylvania sports fans and no NBA team in Pittsburgh. And Pitt basketball was good for a minute. Now they're terrible again. I just don't know, with all those factors working against you, and absolutely no, like zero history or cultural cachet when it comes to the Penn State fan base around that sport. I don't know, man. I hate, trust me, I hate being, negative Nancy on this. I do. I'm a season ticket holder. I've been sitting there suffering through it for a decade, but I'm just not buying it. I'm not. I would love to be wrong.
Yeah. It just would be interesting because, again, I think at least for the foreseeable future, the wrestling and the hockey programs are going to remain national powers here. I really think the hockey program within the next couple of years will be a Frozen Four team, or at least certainly contending for it again. And again, the wrestling program is set up right now, for another 4 or 5 year run of at least, again, contending for Big Ten and national titles.
And just as a quick aside, I really believe Ironhead. I think Penn State and the other Big Ten programs in ice hockey and the Big Ten in general, I think needs to be way, way more aggressive in pushing Big Ten college ice hockey. Because
I agree with you on that.
Look at the markets where you have these huge collegiate brand names with enormous alumni bases. The Big Ten is huge in Chicago, one of an original 6 market. You get New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, all of these places where Minnesota, where you could be really aggressively growing that sport. And I have no idea why, when you are able to take traditional college football rivalries that people are invested in, like Michigan, Ohio State, and to port that over to a sport that is very regionally popular in the footprint where you've got your schools and the majority of your alumni. Why are you not taking advantage of that and tapping into that? And Fox should be doing the same thing.
Yes.
It blows my mind.
Real quick, Isaiah Brockington back in the transfer portal. And as we were talking a little bit before we went on air, it is not often, I guess it's conceivable, but boy, it feels unlikely that a player goes back into the transfer portal a second time just to ultimately come back to the same school.
He's out.
I'd have to look back at history. Again, it might have happened once or twice, but usually a player is not entering a second time just to ultimately come back. So presuming that is the case, that he is leaving for somewhere else, Again, the transfer portal is going to be very important here on the other end here for Penn State. They're going to have some success here in the next couple of months in getting, at least a few kids in if they're to field a competitive team.
Sure.
And again, they do have. I think there are some nice pieces there to start to build around now, but not enough pieces right now that you're going to be able to compete in a league like the Big Ten at a high enough level to think that the NCAA is any kind of a realistic possibility. But I am curious to see what this staff is able to do and what type of momentum it's able to establish on the recruiting front here. And again, that's going to include when we talk recruiting now, it's not just going after the Philadelphia, the high school kids and all of that. It is also what kind of momentum can you establish getting some kids from other programs to come here and feel like they can make a mark. And again, right now you're looking for kids that want to be part of something unprecedented and thus special at this particular school.
You got a new head coach with a great resume who is able to offer a couple really attractive things. I think both the high school and transfer portal recruits, which is to say play Big Ten basketball, plenty of minutes available right out of the gate. So whether you're a promising high school recruit or you're coming here from somewhere else, there's going to be a chance for you to log quality minutes from the opening tip-off of the season. And, look, great campus, great, academics and career services, and great, really good facilities. Like you said, I don't know that anybody is going to go out and trumpet the experience of playing in front of the Bryce Jordan Center crowd right now, but the upgrades, all pushed by Pat Chambers, we should mention, that are now in place in terms of the behind-the-scenes facilities, way closer to being competitive with the rest of the Big Ten peers. So I think he's got a pretty good sales pitch to make, Ironhead.
Yeah, I do too. I'm curious to see it. I say I'm a lot more optimistic than I was just a couple. The possibilities here, at least for Penn State basketball in the near future. That's going to wrap things up for today. Booch will be back Tuesday. And I believe Goon will be back for Thursday's program, right? Or will he be back Tuesday?
I think he's back Tuesday.
Okay.
I think he's back Tuesday, but if he's not, I'll see you then.
Somebody will be in this seat. I'll be in this seat, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday. Until then, be good and be safe.